In section 6.5, we're going to talk about compound probability, and specifically the multiplication rule. So a compound event is an event that is made up of two or more events. An example of that would be like in a coin toss, what's the probability that I flip tails twice in a row? It's compound because I have two coin tosses instead of just one. So today we're going to learn how would I find the probability of something like that. Now I'd use something called the multiplication rule. If A and B are independent events, then the probability of A and B is the probability of A times the probability of B. The important thing to note here is that when you see the word and, you think to multiply. So let's go back to that example. The probability that I flip tails twice in a row, flipping a coin, as we've talked about before, every coin flip is going to be independent of the other. So like what I flipped on the first coin toss is not going to have any effect on the flip of the second coin toss. They're all 50-50 each time. So I could look at this as probability of getting tails and tails again. So that would be 1/2 times 1/2. So the probability of getting two tails in a row would be 1/4 or 25%. Now let's look at a slightly harder example. I have a bag of 3 red, 5 green, 4 purple, and 3 orange Skittles. I close my eyes and pick Skittles, but I put them back in the bag each time. The fact that I'm putting these back in the bag means that each event is independent of one another, because since I put it back in the bag, I'm still going to have 15 each time. Every event is going to remain unchanged, going on to the next one. So the probability that I would pick a red Skittle and then a green Skittle, so probability of red and green, would be, well, first I want to look at the total. There's 15 total. 3 out of 15, so 3 red out of 15 total, times 5 green out of 15 total. When I multiply these together, remember you multiply the numerators and then you multiply the denominators. You would get 15 out of 225. A simplified fraction there would be 1 out of 15. And as a percentage, that would be around 6.67%. The probability that I get purple and purple, so I close my eyes, pick up a purple Skittle, put it back in the bag, and I pick purple again, would be 4 out of 15 times 4 out of 15, which simplifies to 16 out of 225, which overall simplifies to be 7.11%. Now, what about the probability that I get 4 purples in a row? A way that I could look at that is the probability of purple and purple and purple and purple. So 4 out of 15 times itself 4 times, which I could write in a more simple way as just 4 out of 15 to the 4th power, which ends up being 0.005, which would be about 0.5%. So not very likely that would happen. So something important to kind of make a distinguish between is that if two events are not independent, we need to think about how each event affects the next. And an example that we looked at before your last quiz would be like if I had a bag of Skittles, close my eyes and pick Skittles each time, but I eat whatever I pick up. Since I eat a Skittle, now at the next event there's not going to be 15 anymore, so the probability of picking another Skittle is going to change each time I eat one. So let's find the probability of getting red and then getting green. The first probability would be 3 out of 15 like normal, but then when I go back to the bag to pick a green Skittle, since I ate whatever I pick up, there's 5 green that I could pick from now out of 14 since there's only 14 left. Same algebra here when I multiply the numerator and the denominators. It's going to be 15 out of 210, simplified would be 1 out of 14, which is about 7.14%. Let's look at the probability of purple and purple again. The first probability would be 4 out of 15. Now, there's only 3 purple left out of 14 total. So the numerator and denominator change in that second probability, leaving us with 12 out of 210, 2 out of 35, or 5.71%. Now, lastly, let's look at the probability of 4 purple in a row. It would be 4 out of 15 times now 3 out of 14 times 2 out of 13 times 1 out of 12, which would end up being 24 out of 3,270, which would simplify to be 0.73%.